Welcome to the Embracing Brokenness podcast, where our goal is to engage with all of those willing to venture deeper into their transformational journey with Christ. Here's your host and co-founder of Embracing Brokenness Ministries, Steve Adams.
We're going to flip the script a little bit today. If you recall, a few weeks ago, I had Cristin Germaine on the podcast, and she told her story, which if you haven't caught it, you need to go back and do that. Look it up. Not long ago. But she invited me to come on to a radio show that she hosts here in our local region. And so I thought it might be fun to play this back for you this time around and give you an idea of a little bit of my journey, but also what the ministry is really all about, and hear it from a different perspective, different than I would normally tell it here on this podcast or anything else that we produce, either online or in person. So let's just do that. Let me jump in and have you listen in on this interview. Now, the audio on my end is a little fuzzy because I did dial in remotely, but see what you can get from it and fight through the decibel level, if you will.
Welcome to Community Issues and Missions, where people in our community share their personal journeys, their ministries, or their organization. Each guest is passionate about what they have to share. Will you kindly welcome them with me?
Today on Community Issues and Missions, I am your host, Cristin Germaine. We have with us Steve Adams, and thank you, Steve, for meeting with me remotely. You're all the way out there in Lancaster County, and I sure wish you were in the studio with me today, but it's great that we have this interview with you this way. So thank you, Steve, for being part of the interview today. And Steve, would you please tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself and whatever you want to share with us? We'd love to hear more about you.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes.
Really, our stories intersect in a lot of ways, so I'm thankful that this opportunity came along. So, yes, so I am a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am a big fan of sports in that town, but I grew up as an only child, and so much of my time has been spent over the years in just getting to know Jesus as I did when I was just a youngster, and in a career that brought me to a lot of different places in business and otherwise. But probably the most important pieces of this would be the fact that I have a beautiful daughter and son-in-law who happen to live in Denver, Colorado. Nice. And you happen to know my wife, Colleen. So
I do.
What can I say? She's an amazing woman, somebody that I met many years ago, but we've only been married now almost 7 years, and it's a cool story. Thankful for what that relationship has brought, both in ministry and personally. And next to me here sitting is our gold Tucker. So he's
Aww. Can't forget Tucker.
No.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Steve, I think about when you and I met was I heard you on another radio program, and I was sharing with Lisa this morning that I was listening to it in my car, and I was like, you know what, I need to contact this organization. And that's how you and I got to get connected and then became good friends and met your lovely wife, which was before actually you were married. You were just engaged. So this is crazy to think about. It's been 7 years. So I guess that's how long we've known each other as well. So that's exciting. So
thanks for the reminder. I feel like there's a few more gray hairs, but all for the right reason.
Yes. Yes. So today we wanted to share a little bit more about what you do with Embracing Brokenness Ministries. Can you share how that came to be, what prompted you to start the ministry, and how you got involved with that? We'd love to know more about that.
Absolutely. Thanks. I had a long career in business, and so many of those years I was either in a partnership or on my own as, I guess you could say, entrepreneur. I was always a bit of a risk taker. That's not something that concerned me too much. If there was an opportunity, I would take it. And that worked in my favor. Sometimes it didn't work in my favor. So you know how those kind of things go. It was really simple. In the transition over the years, I always knew, I always loved the Lord. I always was a part of my day-to-day life as a believer, just a youngster. But, those stories of life, we go sideways a lot of times. And so for me, it was more about the journey towards wholeness and how that might look. And so, in business, I was successful, but I also always had this deep desire to serve God in a deeper way. And the opportunity came not that long ago. So as I sold a business back in 2011 and further closed one in 2017, it became obvious that there was some things that I learned that I could take into the secular world as a consultant or coach, but I didn't want to do it just that way. I wanted to do it from a kingdom perspective. So I did partner with someone. That's when we met, and consulting and working with business owners who wanted to, honor God in their business and through their business. And so what's odd about that is in about 2018, I sensed, and this is a couple years after Colleen and I got married, but I sensed God moving me more towards something on a full-time basis. He really did. He simply asked me to lay down all of that and pursue what we now call today Embracing Brokenness Ministries, which is a teaching ministry. So I can explain a little bit more about that in a little bit. But with my wife, who is still full-time employed at Water Street Mission, she's on the leadership team there and oversees much of what happens in the mission itself. It was a ripe location to take the message of Embracing Brokenness Ministries, and so we teach together there. And I've also done the same in prison and here in local community and other places. And it has just been a really fascinating journey to watch how God took me from this place where I was, successful at times, others not, prioritizing the world's, point of view, and then recognizing the brokenness that exists out there, even in myself, and I've experienced that, and be able to take that in to more of a full-time mentoring, teaching ministry where we encourage people to really closer to the roots of what really happens in our life when we make the choice to follow Jesus.
Yeah, that's amazing, Steve. And I love you and I both had that in common. When we first met, I was in the secular world, and now God's called me into, a full-time ministry job at a church. And so it's very different kind of world, and yet the principles are the same. And like you said, to bring kingdom into the world is what we as believers really need to be doing, no matter where we are, whether we're shopping or whether we're at our job or, in wherever, that it's awesome that those principles can always be the same and is what is going to bring people to Jesus.
Well, and we have to remind ourselves, right? We all are, if we are Christ, if we are friends of Jesus, and people, there's the word Christian, there's friends of Jesus, which I consider myself, and you do. That opens up our lives to say, okay, we are all in full-time ministry. This is not an assignment specifically for that. Some people get paid to do it, others don't, but it doesn't matter. Like, we have a representation of Christ in every one of us. One of the line that we use in the ministry is bringing the gospel of healing to a broken world.
Yeah. And
I love Paul's letter to Colossians in the first chapter in 28. He says this, him we proclaim, warning everyone and teaching everyone with all wisdom, that we may present everyone mature in Christ. That's all of us. Like, we happen to do it in the ministry, right? To be able to share Christ's love with a hurting world. And we all get called to do that differently. Here you are, hosting this and other ways. I also know what you're doing and what you've done. It's incredible. Like, you were called into, for single moms, and then everything kind of continued on, and God built that platform even more. It's really encouraging, I think, for any listener here. Just know that their purpose goes beyond what we can see a lot of times.
Yes. And I think, so many times as Christians, or like you said, Jesus friends, we don't show our brokenness. We don't feel like we should show that brokenness. And yet that's the very thing that the Lord wants to use to heal the world, is through our brokenness, because we've all been in that place at one time in our life, through our journeys. And so I love that you guys are taking this message to a broken world, because we all have that in common. We're all broken. And so, but thank God we have the hope of the world, the good news. We have Jesus who heals us and helps us. And so it's exciting. And so, Steve, would you share maybe a story or two about some of the people maybe you've impacted, and even through the Water Street Rescue Mission? It would be awesome to hear some of those stories.
Well, great question, because that's ultimately what we hope and pray for every day. And what my wife and I, Colleen and I, put together a curriculum that we teach there, but we also do it in other places. And part of the process is, and those that are experiencing homelessness, and it's not an identity, it's not who they are, it's what they're experiencing.
Right.
It could be you and I, it could be anybody in the world. Through choices of people around us or our own choices, we end up in places we never expect to be. And so I think when we talk about the word brokenness, I have friends who are very wealthy that I consider as the least reached people's group so often for the opposite reason. Maybe they certainly experience homelessness, but they've not experienced the love of God because they're chasing something else. Well, that was me in my life too. And so when we had the opportunity to take this message to the most broken, the most marginalized people in the world at Water Street, and even in the prison system, there's a hunger, a desire, a willingness. And so I have seen over and over and over again, just people glued to the message of Jesus Christ, just glued to the fact that there is healing available in every space of their life. And, oftentimes we react in experiences in dysfunctional ways. So if we get hurt or wounded, we run to something we're familiar with, that we're comfortable with. For me, it's ice cream. No. Yeah, I know. But, when you think about it, we have those things that we use to cover up the hurt, whether it's drugs, alcohol, and that can lead to really tough spaces. And so, at the mission, I was on ground zero and volunteering there at one time, and where people would come running off the streets, and I'd be one of the early ones to greet them because I had some time in my schedule to volunteer there. And you see the look on their face, and like, this wasn't on my bucket list. I don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. And I met people from astrophysicists, don't ask me why, to people who have no one in their life. And I'm still visiting one of those in prison right now. And I had no one, zero, no one.
Wow.
And there is just this space that God wants to meet every person in their hurt and their brokenness. And so I just have the privilege of stepping in without naming names, just to meeting people in that space where they're willing to hear that there's another way, that it's not just the world is messed up. We accumulate, we eat, we live, we die, and that's the end of life. No. Mm. And I think that the hope that Jesus Christ brings in a message of the opportunity to develop an intimacy with him, I think that's really the key here. Developing a deeper intimacy with him so we can walk through the tragedies, the difficulties, and the times that we land in places we never wanted to be.
Right.
So, so that's been my experience in just working with people. And sometimes you get a better response or a better level of willingness to look at change because they don't have options. And so God uses us to reach into our own spirit and try to pull out whatever little bit we have, and he meets us there. I love that. I just love the opportunity to share those times.
I love that too. And I love that you are so passionate about it, that when we have the hope, I just, from what I do with Dream Big, it's just one of those things, bringing God into every part of our lives and being able to have that impact and be passionate about it, because that is what's going to draw the world. Is they're going to be like, ooh, I want some of that. What do they have? I want that. Yeah. And so it's exciting that you're so, passionate about this.
Oh, so you can tell, you mean? Oh, yeah. How do we not? I mean, this, our time's short. Let's face it. We went through this period of uncertainty in the world, and God's given us opportunities to share. People are fearful. God's main attribute is love. What is the opposite of love? It's fear.
Right.
And we have an opportunity as believers to share his love in ways that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do that in time. And time is short. So the enthusiasm is not lacking in me, but in every believer, we should all be looking at that opportunity. What does that mean in our life? Because we're designed with purpose. Every one of us is created in his image. And so as image bearers, we have an attribute. We have something that's unique in every one of us that, and in your case, it's obvious when you were able to do meet people and encouraging them to dream outside of the box.
Yeah.
You know, yours is amazing. When we first met, and to see where you are today, what God has done in your life, just because you laid it down, just because you surrendered it, you didn't take control of it. You were willing to give it up. You know, and it's one thing to be a prisoner in a mission. It's almost like, okay, this is it. This is easy. Mm-hmm. But when you have stuff like we do in our society and in America, we have this wealth that goes beyond our own recognition. We get all upset when something doesn't go right. Trust me, we are wealthy beyond wealthy. Even people at what the mission are, in compared to the rest of the world.
Yes.
We have to set aside that and understand that ease, comfort, and pleasure is not what we're called to. We're called to step out in faith and go to the marginalized and least reach. Give them the message. Give them the love.
Amen, Steve. You're awesome. I love the message, and we are running out of time, but if you can tell us how we could get in touch with you, maybe share a website, phone number, email, however, let us know how we can get in touch with you.
Well, the easiest way is if you go to the website, which is embracingbrokenness.org. There's an email contact there, but you can contact me at steve@embracingbrokenness.org. But you're also all over the place because it's a teaching ministry. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube channel, and all those links are on our website. We have a daily email that we do, and tons of free resources because it's free. We can't do them, so we're free.
Right.
We want to encourage you to just plug into the ministry and ways that we can help. Just let us know. We teach, we speak, we do seminars, we do stuff that help people engage more in this message of developing that intimacy with God.
That is awesome. Well, I'm so thankful, Steve, that you took the time to join us remotely today. We're excited about your ministry and what God's going to do through you. And we just want to thank our listeners today for being with us and joining us on Community Issues and Missions.
Thanks for joining us on Community Issues and Missions. Have a blessed day.
This was another episode of the Embracing Brokenness podcast. For more information on Embracing Brokenness Ministries, or to subscribe to our blog, podcast, YouTube channel, or engage with us on social media, please visit our website at embracingbrokenness.org. Thanks for joining us.